Briefcase. The millionaire WHO hadn't smiled in 12 years. But what the maid did changed him forever. Studio microphone. Narrated by Anna, the maid. My name is Anna Petrova, and what I'm about to tell you isn't a fairy tale. It's something that truly happened to me when I worked as a maid in Moscow. I had seen many kinds of people. Kind ones, arrogant ones, even cruel ones, but never had I met anyone as emotionally frozen as my employer, Sergei Pavlovich Orlov. They said he was a millionaire, the owner of one of Russia's biggest construction empires. People admired and feared him in equal measure. He had everything money could buy: a mansion, cars, art, and influence, but his soul was locked away, hidden behind walls taller than any building his company had ever built. When I first arrived at his house, the butler whispered, "Greater than, don't expect a smile from him. He hasn't smiled in 12 years. At the time, I thought he was exaggerating. But I was wrong. Mantelpiece clock. Chapter 1. The Mansion Without Laughter. Sergei Pavlovich's mansion stood on the outskirts of Moscow, surrounded by pine trees and silence. The house was enormous. White marble floors, crystal chandeliers, and hallways that seemed endless. But despite its grandeur, it felt haunted. Not by ghosts, but by grief. Every step echoed too loudly. The air felt cold, no matter how warm the fireplace burned. The staff moved quietly, like shadows, afraid to disturb the peace that wasn't peace at all. It was emptiness. When I first saw him, he was sitting by the grand window, reading documents. His face was pale, expressionless, like carved stone. "Greater than, you're the new maid?" he asked flatly, not looking up. "Yes, sir. Anna Petrova. Do your job. Don't disturb me." That was all. No welcome, no warmth, not even eye contact. For weeks, our interactions were limited to short instructions and cold nods. I noticed that he always came home late, ate alone, and spent hours in silence by the fireplace. Sometimes, he held a small photograph in his hand, staring at it with eyes full of pain, though no tears ever came. The other staff avoided talking about it, but one evening, while polishing silverware, I asked the butler quietly, "Greater than, what happened to him?" He sighed heavily. "Greater than, his wife and son died in a car accident 12 years ago. He was driving. He survived. They didn't." The words struck me like a gust of icy wind. Suddenly, everything made sense. The silence, the loneliness, the absence of smiles. Heartbreak. Chapter 2. The Photograph. One rainy afternoon, I was cleaning the living room. On top of the black grand piano stood a framed photograph, slightly dusty. I leaned closer and saw a young Sergei with his arm around a beautiful woman. Between them stood a little boy, maybe 6 years old, holding a toy plane. Their smiles were so alive, so bright, that for a moment it felt like the room warmed up. Instinctively, I straightened the frame and wiped the dust off gently. Then I heard his voice, sharp, trembling. "Greater than, don't touch that." I turned and saw him standing behind me, his hands clenched. His face wasn't angry, it was wounded. "Greater than, I'm sorry, sir," I said quietly. "I didn't mean to. Just leave it." He turned away and walked out of the room. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about the photograph, about the way his voice broke when he spoke. I realized that the man who hadn't smiled in 12 years didn't just lose his family, he lost himself that day too. Cloud with Rain. Chapter 3. The Broken Cup. The next morning, Moscow was covered in fog. The air smelled like rain. I was hurrying through the hallway with a tray of tea when my hand slipped, and the porcelain cup shattered on the marble floor. My heart froze. I knew the rules. Sergei Pavlovich hated carelessness. He appeared almost instantly, his footsteps echoing behind me. I bent down, trembling, collecting the shards. "Greater than, leave it," he said coldly. His voice was calm, but it carried that same emptiness. I looked up nervously and tried to lighten the moment. Greater than, I guess even cups can't handle Mondays, I said, forcing a smile. To my surprise, he didn't scold me. Instead, for a fraction of a second, his lips twitched, almost forming a smile. Almost. Then he simply turned and walked away. It was the first crack in the ice. Rose Chapter 4. The Forgotten Garden. A few days later, I discovered an old garden behind the mansion. It was overgrown with weeds, the fountain was dry, and in the corner stood a rusted swing, covered in leaves. Something about it felt sacred, like a place full of memories. I decided to clean it up. Not for him, but for the woman and child in that photo. I spent my lunch breaks pulling weeds, washing the old swing, and planting flowers, daisies, lilies, and roses. One evening, Sergey came home early. I didn't hear him approach. His voice startled me. Greater than, who told you to do this? I turned around, wiping dirt from my hands. Greater than, no one, I said softly. It just seemed like this place deserved a second chance. He looked around the garden, his eyes resting on the swing. For a long moment, he said nothing. Then, without a word, he went back inside. The next morning, when I came to work, there was a new watering can by the garden bench. I smiled. He hadn't said anything, but it was his way of saying thank you. Sun Chapter 5. A glimpse of the past. A week later, while dusting the library, I found a sketchbook tucked behind some old files. Inside were pencil drawings, his wife, his son, and many half-finished sketches of buildings. The drawings stopped abruptly on the last page, with shaky lines and unfinished faces. When Sergey walked in, I quickly tried to close it. But he saw. Greater than, you found it. His voice wasn't angry, just tired. He took the book, flipped through it slowly, and then whispered, almost to himself. Greater than, I used to draw every night. My wife said my sketches made her feel closer to me. After they were gone, I couldn't lift a pencil again. He sat down, and for the first time since I met him, he didn't look like a powerful man. He looked like a human being, lost, grieving, vulnerable. I didn't say anything. I just stood there quietly. Sometimes silence is the only kindness that helps. Sunrise Chapter 6. The Evening of Change. Days turned into weeks. Sergey began spending more time in the garden. I would see him standing by the swing, sometimes touching the old chains with his hand. One evening, as the sun was setting, I brought him tea. He was sitting by the garden bench, the photograph in his hand. Greater than, you remind me of my wife, he said suddenly. She used to laugh at everything, even broken cups. I smiled softly. Greater than, maybe she'd want you to laugh again too. He looked at me for a long time. And then, finally, it happened. A small, genuine smile appeared on his face. Weak, hesitant, but real. The first in 12 years. At that moment, the garden didn't just look alive, it felt alive. Rainbow Chapter 7. The House That Breathed Again. After that day, the mansion was no longer silent. He began greeting the staff. He asked about their families. He started having breakfast in the kitchen instead of his office. One morning, I walked in and saw him laughing quietly at a message on his phone. The butler and I exchanged shocked glances. We hadn't heard laughter in that house for more than a decade. Later, Sergey came to me with a strange request. Greater than, Anna, he said, I want you to help me organize something. Of course, sir. What is it? A children's charity event, in the garden. He wanted to invite kids from the nearby orphanage to play, eat, and enjoy the day. I was moved. Greater than, that's a wonderful idea, I said. He smiled again. This time, without hesitation. Balloon Chapter 8. The Day of Laughter. The garden was filled with life that weekend: balloons, laughter, music, and the joyful chaos of children running around. Sergei watched them from the balcony at first, hands in his pockets, unsure. But then, a little girl with curly hair ran up to him and tugged at his sleeve. "Greater than, will you push the swing for me?" she asked innocently. Everyone froze, watching. He hesitated, then walked down, took the swing's chain, and gently pushed her. The girl laughed, that bright, innocent laugh that echoes through your heart. Sergei's eyes softened. A single tear rolled down his cheek, but he didn't hide it. He laughed too. For the first time in 12 years, his laughter mixed with the sound of children's voices. It was as if the house itself breathed again. Heart Chapter 9. A Heart Rebuilt. From that day forward, Sergei Pavlovich changed completely. He started a new foundation to support single mothers and children in need. He named it the Second Chance Fund. Whenever people asked him why, he would simply reply, "Greater than, because someone once gave me mine." He began to paint again, filling the walls of his mansion with new sketches and bright colors. The once cold marble floors now echoed with warmth and footsteps. I stayed with him for another year. Each morning, he greeted me with a smile. Each evening, he thanked me before I left. One day, as I was preparing to move to another city, he walked me to the gate. It was snowing softly. "Greater than, Anna," he said quietly, "you didn't just clean my house. You cleaned my heart." He handed me an envelope. It was a drawing of the garden we'd rebuilt together, with a note underneath. "Greater than. Some people bring light without realizing it." Sunflower Chapter 10. The Meaning of a Smile. Years later, I heard about him again. Sergei Pavlovich Orlov had become one of Moscow's most respected philanthropists. His face was often seen in magazines, and in every photo, there was that same gentle smile. People called him the millionaire with a heart. But only I knew the truth, that the smile the world admired was born not from wealth, but from kindness, from the courage to open one's heart again. Sometimes, healing doesn't come from medicine, or therapy, or even time. It comes from connection, from a simple act of compassion that reminds us we're still alive. Sun behind small cloud epilogue. The narrator's reflection. When I think back on those days, I often ask myself, what really changed him? The garden, the laughter, the broken cup. Maybe it was all of it. Or maybe it was just the power of being seen, truly seen, by another human being. He had everything money could buy, yet he lived in darkness. It wasn't until someone showed him a little warmth that he remembered what light felt like. The millionaire hadn't smiled in 12 years. But one small act of kindness, one maid who refused to stop caring, changed him forever. Word count. Approximately 2,180 words. Check mark. Genre. Emotional drama, inspirational. Setting. Modern Moscow. Themes. Healing, grief, kindness, rediscovery of life and love.